era Nelson, no ayer, sino que antes de ayer era.
El viernes.
El viernes.
Sí, sí, sí.
Did you take pictures while you were in Bolivia?
Jueves.
No, not me.
You didn't take pictures while you were in
No.
Bolivia? No. Okay.
Okay, let me
Oh,
translate.
give me that
No,
or-
no, yeah, it's okay. En este momento no me puedo, I don't know what the hell's going on. Oh, allow others to join.
Yeah,
But we have internet.
You see Elizabeth Milo's iPhone?
no, it's not on yet. Maybe it'll be on.
This is a wireless.
Okay.
Should I turn it off again and turn
No,
it back
no,
on
it's
again?
okay. It should show up. Okay, wait a minute. So turn it off and turn it on. Okay. Now turn it on. Okay, try it out. So it should show.
Because this, I do have this that's supposedly allowing others to join.
Yeah,
Connect
okay.
using Wi-Fi. Choose Elizabeth
Okay, here it is.
iPhone.
Okay, here it is.
There you go. Right.
Okay, and now it's joined. It automatically joined. I'm on now. Okay.
So you don't need a
I
password.
don't need a password.
Okay.
I remember the password.
So you're there already?
Wait a minute.
You have to get back on Skype.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. No, Skype is here. Okay, here we go. I'm back on Skype.
Okay, you want to try calling him just in case? Just see what's going
Well, I'll
on?
try calling again.
Forget it. It's, now it's the
But
number.
we're back on.
Okay, we're back on. He's going to try reaching you, I guess, because he has your.
Yeah, yes.
But Clarence hasn't come here yet either.
Not yet.
Is he coming?
Well, he said he was going to. Well, he can make a full report on the video,
Yeah.
so that's good.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm just,
Well, talk about what's going on
the
there.
pension.
Yeah,
Me.
you see Pete for America. You see Mayor Pete is having a fundraiser by Reed Hastings, the owner of Netflix, supporter of private schools in Palo Alto. Where's Ken?
You are online.
Okay.
You're online.
Oh, okay.
Careful what you say.
Oh, you're.
It's the world.
Live.
What I just said.
No F words. No.
No.
Let me know.
Okay, let's
Thank you for organizing this. It's really great.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I look forward to the next event.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Well, maybe we should start.
Well, no. Let's
Are we gonna-
not start yet.
Well, Pablo can give a presentation.
Okay.
We could do it next time. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
let's do, Pablo's here, so let's have a
Okay.
presentation.
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
just do Pablo's presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you all for joining us. Today, we're going to have a solidarity meeting with the people of.
Hold on. Let's start. Let me get Pablo on. Otherwise, I'm going to catch him by surprise.
Okay.
I'm trying to get. Still trying to get. He said there was something. He mentioned that there was something unexpected came up.
Okay. Well,
So I don't know what that means. Pablito. So how are we going to do that?
Okay. Okay.
No hay problema de que esperemos, ¿no?
Sí, no, podemos hacer tu parte primero. Igual se va a filmar.
Ya.
Y entonces, con tu parte, en una presentación, ¿verdad?
She can get on the chair.
Yo me pongo aquí. Bueno, queríamos. What? Listo, you can do that.
And then you look at that or?
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, ready?
currently we are online.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready?
What I will do is edit and then.
Ahmed, are you ready?
Yeah. I'm already online.
So I want to thank you brothers and sisters who are watching this all around the world. And this is a meeting in solidarity with the people of Chile and Bolivia. And the fight against the repression, the massive repression, the massive privatization, and the destruction of their lives is not just an issue for them, it's an issue for millions, hundreds of millions of people all over the world. There are struggles in Colombia, in Lebanon, in Egypt, in Iran, throughout the world, and Hong Kong. And these struggles are connected to the crisis of capitalism, the privatizations going on worldwide, including in San Francisco, and we'll be talking about that at San Francisco City College, where the community college is basically being destroyed by the Chancellor, Mark Rocha, but also the Democratic Party, which have instituted the program of ALEC and Lumina Foundation, which is for privatizing all public education in the United States. So our first speaker is Pablo Rodriguez. Pablo is the representative of the adjuncts in AFT Local 2121 and has been active for many years in fighting against privatization at San Francisco Community College, and also has recently returned from Bolivia. So welcome, Pablo, to this important presentation.
Well, thanks, everybody. Thank you very much. And it is a pleasure to be here. Very grateful that we are able to bring the message to all our brothers and sisters around the world, as I understand that this is broadcast everywhere. I must indicate before I start that I am a social scientist, I'm a historian, and that's my job, and I specialize in the U.S. foreign policy, particularly in Latin America. And I've been actually, I think in most of the, I will say everywhere in Latin America except Paraguay. I haven't been there yet. Probably next year I might be there. And I will probably bring you the aspect of our, I'm saying our involvement because I am in the United States of America.
I made it.
And I will probably touch that area because I've been talking to a lot of people these days, everywhere. I just came from another presentation in the East Coast, and I think what is very key is to understand and put it into the context of U.S. foreign policy in the region, what just happened in Bolivia, and not just Bolivia, what is taking place in Chile, what is taking place in Ecuador, even Peru, as this moment is a government-less country. There is no government in Peru. And Colombia right now is paralyzed, so is Chile. And so I would suggest that you, when you look at this issue, just don't try to look at just one piece, because it's not what the U.S. foreign policy is in the region. They see it as a whole. They see the whole region, and this is part of a program. This is what just happened in Bolivia, that coup, golpe de Estado was that they call. It's just it's not just Bolivia. It's and not only that, but it is being happening. I got to tell you that I have been in Bolivia prior to Evo Morales. I have been in Bolivia during Evo Morales, and I've been in Bolivia after Evo Morales. And I got to tell you that ever since 2005, by the way, you have to understand that Bolivia has been seen through the eyes of the U.S. foreign policy makers as a piece of land full of resources that the U.S. need. That's it. That's how they see it. And that's why I stated earlier that you really have to look at the historical processes that are taking place, that have taken place, in order to understand what's going on right now. Because just to give you a little, another number, between 1999 and 2005, Bolivia had 6 presidents. So if you can do your own math, including one that wasn't even a Bolivian, he's a U.S. citizen and couldn't even speak Spanish. Needless to say, one of the 26 and more languages that are people of Bolivia speak. So that tells you that we go back to the 1823, right? James Monroe, the Monroe Doctrine. America, not for the Americans, America for the elites, because it's not even for the Americans. I mean, the American people right now, as the brother said earlier, and locally in San Francisco are suffering. The people in the United States really are going through dark times. And we probably will touch upon later, because I also represent, I'm a union person. I belong to the American Federation of Teachers, and I can tell you that not just in San Francisco, but throughout the whole country. The last number, so that you have an idea, is that professors all over the U.S., close to 70% are part-timers. So can you imagine? Can you imagine how our students will learn when the person who is teaching them is working 10, 15 hours, 20 hours the most? So that, a little parenthesis. So going back to Bolivia, and I will have to add another element, as I was saying earlier, from 1999 right to 2005, because in 2005, Evo Morales, by the way, the first Native American elected in the whole history of the continent. I'm saying Native American because I'm talking about American. I'm not saying Native Bolivian. He belongs to the ethnic group called the Aymaras. And look, 2005, he gets elected with more than 65% of the vote. First time ever in the history of Bolivia in that case, because ever since the 1820s, what Bolivia had was European-descended leaders. And that's why 2005, that's why everybody say there is a Bolivia before 2005, and there is a Bolivia after 2005. And I got to tell you that right after Evo Morales was elected, immediately, the United States of America, through the Central Intelligence Agency and through the National Endowment for Democracy and some other intelligence organizations, they got ready, and through the State Department, the U.S. Embassy started the process of getting rid of Evo Morales. So 2019, one can look at it and you can see how long did it take them to finally destroy that historical project. But which, by the way, and we'll touch upon that later. As of this moment, last Saturday, I had a conversation directly with some of the leaders of the MAS. That is the political party that Evo Morales actually founded with so many other leaders. And MAS in Spanish is Movimiento hacia el Socialismo. In English will be a movement towards socialism. And first time ever in the history of that country that they are starting to talk about their own situation in those terms. So here you have the first, as the elites of Bolivia call him, el indio, the Indian. you got him elected, and then in the next elections, he got reelected. And then in the next elections, he got reelected again. And what happened is that, and some of you probably will remember that term that was used, that one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere was Bolivia. And Haiti. So whenever you talk about, hey, what are the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere? Oh, Haiti and Bolivia. So that was, in the case of Bolivia, that was true before 2005. Well, guess what? Guess what happened? In less than 20 years, and please don't take my word. Go ahead and look at the report from the United Nations. Look at the report from the World Bank. And there you will find that there is one country in Latin America which in the last 10 years, year after year, consecutively, had positive economic growth. And what they call it is progreso económico y social, social and economic progress. It's not as, we say, oh, wow, macroeconomics. Okay, so we're doing good because we're dealing with the finances very well, but then guess what? The people are not doing good. In Bolivia, it's the other way around. Poverty was brought down more than 40%. I mean, even the IMF, International Monetary Fund, had been saying about Bolivia that they have been doing a really great job in the last few years, as the data indicates so. And not only that, but under the administration of the MAS with Evo Morales, in many areas, I'll just mention a few that I have witnessed. For instance, the elderly in Bolivia. In the last 10, 15 years, they had an increase in their pensions. Schools, just to give you a number, right? And probably you already know that the United Nations, they put a minimum percentage that every country must put into education from their budget, which is 6%. So 6% of their budget must at least go to education. Well, guess what? Bolivia is leading Latin America in terms of how much they were putting into education. If you look at it, ever since probably 2007 until last year, it will be anywhere between 15 to 22%, something that even in the European, Nordic European countries, you hardly see that. So that is what those numbers, and I want you to remember these numbers, because later on when I'm going to tell you about what happened last Saturday, then you will probably understand where is this going to go, because in the next few weeks there will be elections in Bolivia. So these numbers, what these numbers reflect is that the entire society, and remember I told you Bolivia was in the bottom of the countries in terms of poverty, and now is up there, top #1 in terms of economic development, in terms of helping their people, in terms of health, in terms of education, even the unemployment numbers plummeted in the last 10 years as a result of the policies that the government has implemented. Almost everybody's working on it and decent jobs. So, and I want to also, as I was telling our friends yesterday, that one needs to understand what's going on also around in the continent, in South America. And I will give you a couple of quick examples. I compare, because a lot of people were saying, right, oh my God, okay, so, you know, the time of the era of coups is over, you know, democracy now, and respect human rights and everything, and the U.S. foreign policy finally is not about overthrowing governments, and well, here we are. I mean, that's not the case at all. The U.S. Foreign policy, if they have to do another coup tomorrow, they will do it. They will do it. And I think you remember, some of you, or most of you might remember about 1954. In 1954 in Guatemala, with Jacobo Arbenz. You know, we were analyzing. Yesterday, I put some audios that I have in my on my library, and I was sharing them with some of our friends. And there is Jacobo Arbenz, forced to resign, 1954. Forced to resign by who? By the same people who forced Evo Morales to resign. How many years later? So that's why I say, if you're looking, if you're gonna take a look at Bolivia, you might not just stop there, because everything is well planned. We have some audios. We got some information from some Bolivians, in which they gave us actually some people got in the meeting, and there were some recordings, and the name of 3 senators came up, and probably you might guess who the names were. I'll just give you the state where they come from: Texas, New Jersey, and Florida. Okay, so names are clear: Ted Cruz, right? Marco Rubio, and Bob Menendez. And then you're like, wait a minute, these guys are all Hispanics. They're all Latinos. Little Marco Rubio, you know, he's what they call a gusano.
Are you from Cuba?
From Cuba. Little Ted, even
Canada.
where? But you know what? I'm glad that you bring that up, because even Mr. Trump, by accident, I don't know if it was by accident, but he brought up something that is true, actually, historically. Ted Cruz's dad was a mafia guy, and he was involved. And guess what? He was involved in the Kennedy assassination. That little senator from Texas. And then, of course, the ultra right-wing Bob Menendez. But then people say, wait a minute, but Bob Menendez, you know, he's not a Republican.
He's an awful person.
And then you go like, wait a minute, who told you that there is a difference, right, between the Republicans and the Democrats when we are gonna be talking about foreign policy? That is not different. And then that's where you realize it, and you say, oh, I see, because you know it's the same bird with the 2 wings, right? So it's the same thing. So as it is now, because I see the signal here, we're running out of time, but I just gotta, I want you to, and you know, I always say this, right? Because a lot of people say, well, you know, how you got all that information? And well, I am probably, I don't know, maybe unfortunately, I am fortunate to, this is my job. I'm a social scientist. I do 24/7 research. That's what I do. And whenever I have the time and the opportunity, I really like to go and see with my own eyes. Like in Venezuela, little guy here whose name is Jorge Ramos. Anybody know Mr. Jorge Ramos? You know, he's Univision, the equivalent to this guy at CNN, Anybody knows that name of this guy that?
Anderson Cooper.
Anderson Cooper. And it's amazing. It's like they were made with the same whatever model because they look alike. And I sent a report because Jorge Ramos went to Venezuela to think that he was going to humiliate the president. And the president, Nicolas Maduro, was kind enough to let this journalist, the number one journalist in the Hispanic world, journalist, yes. Yeah, Jorge Ramos, that's what they call him, right? So he was sent. Later on, we found out that he was working with Mike Pompeo. So we knew later on that Mike Pompeo had sent him. So I sent a letter to Univision because I'm like, wait a minute, hey, are you a journalist? Why? Because, he made a mistake. He made a mistake once in Caracas when he was in Venezuela. And remember, I'm bringing this up because I don't want you to just look at Bolivia as an isolated case. Because that will be not a mistake, but there wouldn't be a profound understanding of what we really are doing over there. So we sent Jorge Ramos to provoke Nicolas Maduro, and finally Nicolas Maduro said, "Well, look, you are like the CIA. Are you a journalist or you're a CIA person?" So finally, not to take too much time on this, he said, "Okay, look, you know what? This is over, my friend. This is not an interview. You came here to question me." And then later on, we learned that Mike Pence and Pompeo was working with him and had indicated to him and told him to go over there and do exactly what he did. As you know, I think you're following this very deep. Ever since 1999, we have sent teams to Venezuela, meaning, what is called mercenaries, right? They are inside Venezuela. And you remember in 2002 that we went over there and did a coup. We kidnapped the then president, Hugo Chavez. We took him. And Evo Morales said, okay, I'm resigning, right? He was forced. Hugo Chavez was also forced, but he said, I'm not gonna do that. So they took him to an island. And see, what happened is that, and I'm gonna go back to Bolivia in a few minutes, but I just wanna let you know that what happens is that this wave of popular governments, I mean popular meaning that they come really from the people, they organize their own citizens. And what happened with Hugo Chavez was that not even 24 hours have passed that we kidnapped him when there were about more than 1 million Venezuelans right there in Caracas asking for the return of their president. And they didn't have any other choice. Because by then you could felt that Venezuela was going to probably put in a situation that probably nobody would have been able to control it. So at the end, they say, oh shoot, what are we gonna do? So they brought him back. 2002, 3, 4, 5, they kept trying after they failed to do the coup and kidnap him. Then they went into the special operations that they have now, and special units on assassination. And he's no longer with us, right? Because what? He was poisoned and he suffered a lot. So he died. But then Nicolas Maduro Nicolas Maduro took over. He was elected and re-elected. And our former president here, right, in the 70s, Mr. Jimmy Carter, and his organization, foundation, he goes all over the world, certifying or not certifying elections. Once I was in Georgia, and actually we went to visit his foundation, and I got to ask him, I said, look, it's very nice that you go all over the world, but I haven't seen you here in Miami where there is fraud every time there are elections.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in LA. I haven't seen you in New York. What is that? I mean, you will make fraud news indicating that in the South, for instance, every time there is fraud. And, they were like, well, that's not our job. We are overseas institution. We can't work in the, and I'm like, I know who you work for. So, see, the thing is that we gotta let these people that they can't hide it anymore. They can't. It's like minutes later that Evo Morales was forced to resign. We already knew. We already knew that Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Bob Menendez, and some other elements within the State Department were involved with our asset, the CIA asset in Latin America, who is Alvaro Uribe. I don't know if you're familiar with that name. He's a former Colombian president. He's the power behind everything over there.
What's his name?
Alvaro Uribe. And right now, Ivan Duque is the president, but everybody knows who is the real president. Like, remember here in the 2000s when you had somebody by the name of George Bush, the president, but then he wasn't the power behind it. Then you have a vice president, and he was the one, right? He was the real power there in the White House, Dick Cheney. So, not to take all the time, because I see that my time is up almost. I just wanna leave you with this. Evo Morales, right now, he is in a city very close to Bolivia, because he went back. Remember, Mexico saved him because he was gonna be. See, what happened is that the CIA wanted to do exactly the same like they did with Libyan Gaddafi, Omar Gaddafi, the president. Yeah. Libya, and they wanted to do the same thing also with Saddam Hussein, where they will show that the people will get him and humiliate him in the street and kill him, so that in the images it's like he died like worse than an animal. They wanted to do that with Evo Morales, but it was incredible how quick and fast they acted. Meaning Evo's closest advisors, and they phoned directly to Mexico, and Mexico said, don't worry about it, we are going to help you right now. And they immediately sent a plane. And the day after, hours later, he was able to make it to Mexico. And then the team, they call it the extermination team, which were some members of the Mossad, which, by the way, they are still there, killing a lot of people. So they failed. And it was a big problem for them, because that was exactly the mission that they had. They were ordered not to let Evo Morales be alive. And they wanted to do it the same way that they did it with Libyan's president and Iraq's president. So they failed. So he went to Mexico, I was telling you, and Mexico, he had a great time. You know, he was received as hero, and he went to the universities, he went to the labor union, he went all over, you know, talking to people and everything. So days later, and you know now that Argentina has a new government, and hopefully it's not the Macri was there for 4 years. So Macri, basically what he did is completely give Argentina to the IMF, to the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, to the extent that just in those 4 years, Macri put Argentina deep into over $100 billion in debt with the IMF, because they knew he was going to lose. So what they did is, okay, look, let's do this quick because the Kirchners are coming, the Fernandez are coming, and that's the new, many people believe that it's a center to the left political party. So now they are there, and that's why Evo Morales was able to go to Argentina, because the new government actually say, look, we are very happy to have you here. As a matter of fact, he's been given the status of political refugee. And of course, now, and this is now we're going back to what I told you about last Saturday. Last Saturday, the MAS had their National Assembly. And this is to the elections that are coming. The date is still, they are saying January or February, so it still is in dispute. It's not clear yet, but it's going to be very soon. So, but what happened at that assembly, it was something that you probably are not going to see anywhere in no other country. Thousands of Bolivians came from all over the country. And you have people who actually, were walking. Somebody was telling me 500 kilometers. Can you imagine? They came in to the city called Cochabamba, and in Cochabamba they had the numbers were between 10 to 15,000 members that were there to come up with their strategy for what they're gonna do within the next few days, actually, or a few weeks for the elections. So, guess what happened? They voted unanimously that Evo Morales was going to be their campaign manager. So, it's something that I've never seen before. You have a president who is not in the country, who was given a coup d'etat and almost killed. So now he went back, he went to Mexico, and then he went to Cuba, and then he went to Argentina, where he's right now. And then now his party voted him to be the campaign manager. And you know what the sense we are getting? And then I'll stop here. The sense that you're getting now is that out of this whole nightmare, it looks like in the next elections, Evo Morales' party, to many people, it's unquestionable that they will win. But a lot of people are saying that it's going to be a big win, even bigger than the one that just happened in October. So, and why is that? Because now, and this morning I got a couple of audios too that there is a scandal right now in the ultra right members. They are fighting over who is going to be the president. They're fighting, and now it's
Same
public.
thing in Venezuela.
Exactly. And if you go back to 1989, remember those elections? We were like, oh my God, what happened? When 1990, you got Violeta Barrio de Chamorro elected president in Nicaragua. As a result of something that the State Department put together in Miami. They put it together in the last minutes, and they say to the ultra right-wing guys, hey, let's get together and let's go over there. And suddenly they won the elections in 1989. So right now what is happening in Bolivia is like there's an infighting as you have never seen. And to the extent that these two guys who were like, oh my God, yeah, they will lead the opposition. So now because of this scandal, it looks like they're out of the picture. And then that leaves the ultra right-wing element in a total state of despair. And nationally, if the difference in the last elections was 10 points between Evo Morales and Carlos Mesa, the opposition guy, this time they are talking about at least 20. So I will suggest to you to keep an eye on it, because this is going to send a message, not just to the Bolivian people, not just to the region, not just to the Western Hemisphere, but I think to the whole continent and to the whole world. It's like right now you see it. Sebastián Piñera, the Chilean president, is against the wall. He's right now, and I think you are following everything. But just to give you a little detail, that right now, the numbers that he had ordered to kill Chileans is increasing, and I heard something that even there are some prisons that don't have more space for the political prisoners. So it's so much the pressure that the Constitution is going to be rewritten. And you don't do that unless there is a revolution. So what is happening right now, and this is my take on this, what is happening right now is that the neoliberal model, as you and I know it, has arrived at its end. The neoliberal economic model in Latin America is ended.
From your mouth to God's ear.
So what does that mean? Yes, exactly. What does that mean now? Well, Colombia, for instance, the center-lefty political parties in the last elections, just recent elections, not presidential, provinces, state, they won. They won the elections. Ecuadorian president right now is getting into the situation in which he can't control the people. And then, of course, MAS is going to come back to Bolivia. And then you have Peru. And then you have the other countries in which people are really, really now organized and have gotten into a situation in which they say a new country, a new world, not only is possible, but it's necessary. So I think there is more to it, and if we have more time, I would be happy to develop more. But I don't know how we are doing with the time.
Thank you. Steve, questions?
Anybody has any questions with
Yeah.
regard to that?
Okay,
Precisely
yeah.
about Bolivia.
Yeah. Two questions. One is starting with the elections. How certain are you that the elections are going to be fair? And will they allow it? Number one. Number two, we have seen in the past, like in Chile, 1973, we have seen it in Venezuela, what these people can do. And I have seen it in Venezuela myself, that there is a militia, and that they are on the street. And just 2 days ago, a news came in that They were about like last year 2 million. Now there are 3.3 million militia that is protecting the revolution, and every single one of them is going to get a rifle or gun, something to defend themselves. So knowing these, why wasn't something similar to this in effect in Bolivia, and would that have prevented Evo Morales to be deposed?
I'm glad you raised that question, because you know what, the vice president, Evo Morales, vice president, touched on that. Because I mean, this is your last part, right? But you're going back to the first part of elections. Are they going to be fair or not? MAS, the Evo's movement, Evo's political party, has a presence, a strong presence in what is called el Tribunal Electoral, the electoral institution. That there will be probably, you know, they will be. I would say not to the extent to switch the result if MAS win. Nicolas Maduro's options are not that many. Also, one of the what you are touching upon is very important, because I was in a discussion, you know, when I was there with some people there, and they were talking about North Korea, and saying, well, you know, North Korea, right? Why North Korea is standing tall, and why you know, still there after, you know, as you remember. 1950, 51, 52, 53, the U.S. bombed that part of the world and dropped more bombs in North Korea than the whole bombs that were dropped during World War II. 90% of that country was destroyed to the ashes. So what they did, hey, let's go nuclear. And they got their nuclear power. So Venezuela had been saying for some time, well, look, either we defend our country, or it's gonna happen what they did it to Saddam Hussein, what they did it to Libya, what they are doing it right now to Syria. So, and actually you were saying about you know, 2-something million, but you know what? The numbers yesterday, I got some messages. They are looking 2020 get a militia of over 4 million. Yeah. And I can tell you that right now, even right now, when I had a chance to go to some places, you see the highly organized militias are already there, and it's like by blocks, because they know, they say the Yankees are coming. They might be able to get in, but they will not get out. They will not get out. And they say, and if they get out, we'll be in plastic bags. Now, knowing that, the U.S., even now, Mike Pompeo, I don't know if you heard his latest words on Venezuela. He's like, no, we're not going to go there militarily. We're not going to go there. So, what is happening right now, and I was in, you know, there is a border point there called Cucuta next to part of Venezuela, and you can see that what they are doing right now is organizing paramilitary mercenaries. They are breeding, and I found this out through actually there is one who has got in just to get some information, and they are bringing mercenaries from the Middle East. Yes, Middle East. I think so you know that. They are mercenaries from Honduras, El Salvador, Colombia, of course, Peru. So they are already at the border. They're there, and some of them have already got in Venezuelan territory. But as you mentioned, right now, the way how the Venezuelan government is dealing with this, it's like, look, come in, we're waiting for you. Venezuela, it will never go back to your hands. And to be honest with you, from what I have seen, I think that the people in Venezuela, a large number, a big number, are just willing to defend their country, even if it's with their own lives. I saw like elderly people with M16 and assault rifles, and they get trained every morning. Every morning they come in a little space in their blocks, do the little exercise, armed, and this is throughout the whole country.
This is Venezuela.
This is in Venezuela, because he was.
But why didn't Bolivia have a similar structure?
And I'm going back to what the vice president, he recognized. He recognized. Because somebody say, why, knowing that the United States have even really attempted several times to kill Evo Morales, to do a coup d'etat, and why you didn't arm yourself? And his answer was that, well, that was, we have an armed forces, we have our own army, and by the way, 2008, you probably remember, 2008, there was actually a military uprising against Evo Morales in that part of, what is called Santa Cruz, where all the right-wing elements are concentrated, and actually we have some military presence there, undercover, and we train the mercenaries. So that area is always...
When you say we, it's not we.
Well, I'm glad that you say that. You know why? You know why? Everybody here.
The U.S.
No, everybody here, we pay taxes.
Yeah.
These mercenaries, do you know that the CIA is a public institution? It's a government institution.
Is it what?
It's a government institution.
No.
The CIA. We
Right.
give about $500 billion a year. Your money, my money.
I remember when they were made.
That's why I say we.
The Dulles brothers.
Remember the Dulles brothers in Guatemala, right?
Yeah.
With the Cobo Water Banks. So they went over there because of United Fruit Company. To defend
A long time
America,
ago.
right? United Fruit Company. And Guatemala, to this day, had not recovered. Have not recovered from that. More than 400,000 Guatemalans were killed from 1954 all the way to the peace accords in the 90s. So, just to close with this, because I think that the question is one that really, and now they are looking into, because you know what happened? 6 officers who were involved on this document where they suggest to Evo Morales to resign. 6 of those officers were from the School of Americans. And the one who came in and told him to his face, hey, we suggest you resign, he had just been a military attaché in Washington from 2014 to 2018. So now you say, wait a minute, Evo, come on, didn't you feel it? You were surrounded by the CIA. So why you didn't have your own? And that's what they say. Well, we were working on developing the country. We were working on bringing food to the table for our Bolivians, because you have to realize that Bolivia, and you know that, for what, more than 200 years, ever since its foundation, poorest in the Western Hemisphere. And by the way, you know who was the first president of Bolivia? I'm testing you. That's why Bolivia is called Bolivia. Simón Bolívar. Imagine. So that's why Evo Morales, when he was in Mexico, And people say, oh my God, Evo, so wow, you land, you left, and so what's gonna happen? And he said, no, I'm coming back. And I'm gonna come back with millions more. Because the history of Bolivia is one of the most amazing histories of any people. So, okay, so that's, I'm sorry that I
Thank you.
I'm so happy we were able to do that. We have our comrade from Chile is available, but he's not able to do it via Skype, so we're gonna have to do it by phone. Is it okay, by phone? Can we do it by phone? Yeah? How is the audio gonna work? by
Put it
phone?
here.
We'll put it in the audio, we'll get his audio right here.
Is it right now?
Yeah.
Can you
yeah.
move in the middle?
Yeah, but they, okay, in the middle.
Glad you're here.
Okay, right.
Even though nobody's here.
I'm going to be doing interpreting, so I'm going to ask, and please, Clarence, come here. Come join us, Clarence.
Yeah, take Clarence, sit now.
Please,
Clarence, I'll take your seat now.
thank you.
Okay, we're gonna now interview Nelson Cancino, who's a doctor here in Chile, and he's gonna be.
Don't forget we have
He's the president of the Dock Workers Union in Chile, and he's from Iquique, the northern part of Chile, and he's actually a dock worker who came and visited San Francisco and the United States in 2014 as well. So he's familiar with the ILWU and with the comrades at ILWU. And let me give him a quick call, okay? Hold on a second.
We're also gonna be interviewing auto worker, fired GM auto worker. In Guanajuato, Celio, who's been fired for supporting the GM workers here. They're a group of GM auto workers who've been fired for actually going out in solidarity with the workers here.
I didn't do it right.
You want me to try calling using this? Try my phone? Okay, let's
Can you do it by that phone?
Yeah.
That might be even better because that means that it would, you're doing it by phone, not by Skype, right?
No, I'm like,
Because it's by Skype.
no, it's not.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna do
What, you got it through?
I will in a second. Yeah, don't try to call that number, otherwise it's gonna. Okay.
Gracias por utilizar Voz Revolution.
You got the right guy.
Let's hope we can get through.
Aló.
Nelson,
Buenas tardes.
¿nos escuchas bien?
Sí,
Ok, qué bueno, qué bueno. Mira, te tengo con micrófono y todo para que te escuchen bien. Mira, tenemos aquí con nosotros a diferentes compañeros que están aquí haciendo presentaciones. Recientemente habló Pablo Rodríguez, que es miembro representante de la Federación Americana de Profesores Local 2121 de los trabajadores, los profesores de tiempo medio, de los adjunct professors, como se llama, del City College de San Francisco, y él recientemente regresó de Bolivia. Entonces estaba dando como un pequeño informe sobre Bolivia. Después podemos compartir contigo el video que surgió de ahí. Y bueno, te quería presentar formalmente a Steve Zeltzer, que es del United Public Workers for Action, y él también es el que tiene el programa que se llama Labor Video Project. Y Steve, I'm just introducing you. Y también aquí está con nosotros. Perdón. You want to say hi?
Hello. And we support your struggle here in San Francisco of the Bolivian dock workers and all the Chilean dock workers and all the struggle of the people of Chile against privatization, against the massive repression. So we'll be speaking more about that.
Entonces, lo que dijo básicamente es que apoya a la lucha de los trabajadores portuarios chilenos y toda la lucha en contra de la privatización y la lucha por el pueblo chileno. Y vamos a conversar acerca de eso, de lo que tienes para decir, hablar sobre eso. También tenemos aquí con nosotros a Clarence Thomas, es el ex secretario de local 10 de los activadores del ILWU. Clarence, I'm presenting you formally.
Hola, compañero.
¿Puede escuchar bien?
Clarence Thomas, ILW Local 10, retired.
Ya. Es el Clarence Thomas, el local 10, trabajador, activador, dirigente activador, que está aquí con nosotros también. Queríamos darte el espacio para que pudieras darnos una idea, un bosquejo sobre lo que está sucediendo en Chile en estos momentos y sobre todo la lucha de los estibadores y los trabajadores portuarios. Pues todo lo que les voy a decir también lo voy a decir en inglés para que todos sepamos de lo que estamos hablando, ¿ok? ¿Me puedes escuchar bien?
Sí, un poco con eco, pero lo escucho bien.
Yeah, okay. We'd like to invite you to give us a brief summary about how the dock workers are going through in Chile as well as the workers in general, and what would you like to talk, whatever it is that you'd like to speak to us about regarding Chile. Okay, puede empezar, compañero.
Bueno, primero saludar a Flores, a toda la gente que está ahí presente hoy.
First, I'd like to give a greeting to Clarence and everybody here is present today.
Use your mic.
First, I'd like to give a greeting to Clarence and everyone here who is present today. Continúe.
Bueno, principalmente me gustaría contar cuál es el rol de la Unión Portuaria, el Gremio Nacional Portuario dentro de la Unión Nacional que está llevando.
First, I'd like to talk about what the role of the dock workers union is and the movement. Okay.
Bueno, como en Chile ha sido el proceso de dictadura, había representantes sindicales que eran muy burocratas, muy patronales. La Unión Portuaria utilizó una idea estratégica de tener voceros y desplegarse a nivel nacional para tener una muy alta tasa de sindicalización de los trabajadores.
Okay. First, the unions that came, that was forming, were formed during the dictatorship were very bureaucratic and very boss-friendly unions. And they, so those were the unions that existed. But so that the Port Workers Union decided to develop a long-term strategy of having speakers and organizing at a national level in order to be able to strengthen the Dock Workers Union. Continúa.
Bueno, la Unión Portuaria de un día sobre un rol protagónico dentro de la Federación Nacional, producto de tenemos una diferenciación de una alta tasa de sensibilización y un poder prácticamente instrumental, es decir, podemos parar o parar con los puestos.
¿Un poder qué?
Podemos tener una decisión instantánea de poder paralizar las obras y los trabajos al interior de los recintos portuarios.
So we have a very strong presence at the national level, and in fact, we also have a very high percentage of unionization among our workers, and we are able also to make very instantaneous or very quick decisions about whether or not we're going to go on strike at the ports. Continúe.
Bueno, yo trabajo en el norte de Chile, en el puerto de Chile, un puerto estratégicamente importante, ya que es el puerto de tránsito de todas las mercaderías que van hacia dentro del cono sur de Sudamérica, países como Bolivia, Perú, Paraguay y el norte de Argentina. Bueno, estamos en la ciudad y pasa mucha casa por nosotros.
So our port is actually the one located in the north, in the area of Iquique, which is a very strategically very important port because it has a lot of products that are being transported through the port of Iquique that go into the southern cone, which is Bolivia, Peru, Paraguay, and the northern part of Argentina as well.
Continúe.
Bueno, producto de estallido social, que ya todos saben cuáles son las causas: educación, salud, vivienda, transporte, jubilaciones, trabajo. Las demandas del mundo organizado no han sido escuchadas. Y producto de eso han sido dos sindicatos, las organizaciones sociales, quienes han tenido que asumir un rol protagónico para poder direccionar como la fuerza de la organización social.
So as a result of the uprising, which all of us know, what the causes were, basically the problems with education, with healthcare, privatization, and also problems with housing, transportation, the pension, the work environment. All of these issues came to a head because all of these demands of the people have not been met. And so it has been the union